pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. Do we have any public comment from the board?
Just one comment that's pretty obvious. Route 2A is being milled down by Mass DOT, so please travel carefully as you go around the sewer and drainage manholes. The good thing is that this is going to be a better prepared road once it is complete.
I'd just like to thank everyone who participated in the Memorial Day observance on the 29th of May, and remind people that the fire, police, and EMT memorial observation is this coming Sunday, May 11th at 8:30 a.m., and that's at the Public Safety Building.
June 11th?
June 11th.
Excuse me?
June 11th.
June 11th, I'm sorry. Still this Sunday, but it's June 11th.
8:30?
8:30 at the Public Safety Building.
That was very nice last year.
Yeah. And all are welcome. Is there any public comment on topics other than those that are on the agenda?
Hi everyone, I'm Michelle Beliza from the Boys and Girls Club here in Lunenburg. I sent an email with a request to host a voluntary toll. We're finishing up our fiscal year and we'd like to finish it with a voluntary toll. The date we have requested is Saturday, June 17th. And we're just trying to finish the year strong. We had an amazing year, served over 250 kids in grades 6 through 9, including our summer program, which we're having again this year. And things are going fantastic, so we'd appreciate your support again.
Great.
Thank you.
And we'll see that on the agenda next week?
Next Tuesday.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Sir?
Yes, thank you. My name is Morgan Ledger of the Lunenburg Ledger, and I was requested to make a small comment. This is in regards to a later topic. As you know, there is the Lane Estate on 300 Holman Street, which will be presenting the Unifier Festival. As you know, Dr. Darian Massey has acquired that property, and because of the vast history behind it in terms of the visitations of many artists that have been there and have visited there, he was thinking of possibly preserving it, opening it to the public per se, considering the park has kind of quality, because there's no bylaw that in terms to...
Sir?
Yes.
Sorry for interrupting. I will hear that public comment for sure, but I'd like to do that in the agenda space where it belongs, okay?
Sorry.
I'm sorry if I wasn't clear about...
No, my mistake, my mistake.
That's part of the event that will be held there? Or-
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
I was just explaining shortly that they're experimenting and having different ideas.
You'll have plenty of time to say that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Any other public comment other than our agenda topics? Okay. Our first item on the agenda this evening is the vote on the property acquisitions and award damages for Summer Street. And we have Trish Domigan with us this evening.
Hi, good evening. How are you?
Good.
Now we're really this close to getting the project under construction. I think as part of your Board of Selectmen packet, you got a draft copy of the order of taking. So tonight, I think I'm requesting that you vote to acquire the land that's needed for the construction of the Summer Street Transportation Improvement Project, and to also vote to record the order of taking for the land acquisition needed for the project. Just as a reminder, the town has gone through a number of years, I think it's been a decade now, on getting this project up to this point to final design and land acquisitions. There's about 32 temporary easements that are needed and 2 drainage easements, one being on the MBTA property. So tonight, you're going to vote to take the land into the order of taking.
I don't see a copy of the order of taking. I see the list of owners, I see some maps, but I don't see the actual order of taking.
That should have been
Is
handed
that
off to you.
somewhere, or
It was emailed out.
Yeah,
is it in the packet?
no,
Okay.
I have one here.
Okay.
Okay,
This is the same one that was
Thank you.
emailed out.
yes.
Yep. There's a slight, you can vote, and the order of taking does need to be signed to record it at the Registry of Deeds. We need a notary to observe you signing it, and there's not one here tonight, correct?
The town clerk is downstairs.
Right.
Tonight, but you would have to go
I see Adam
downstairs.
raising his hand. Are you a notary?
Yeah.
Okay, we could do that if you want.
So, perfect. So if you want to sign the order and have a notary notarize it, that would be terrific.
Is there any questions or comments?
I make a motion that we perform the order of taking as submitted on the handout for the temporary and permanent easements, and the order of taking listing all the property owners and the damages listed within the handout.
Second for discussion.
Is there any discussion?
My question is if we look at the just compensation amounts, my question is the funding source for that just compensation amount.
I can let Trish,
So
but I believe
last
that was.
fall, right, last fall, you voted to, for the amount of funding I recall as part of town meeting, the town meeting warrant for the fall town meeting.
Okay, so we have that in the budget?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Any other discussion?
I reviewed the order of taking. It's consistent with what we've done in the past. The total amount of the just compensation amount is $32,530 for probably about 20 different properties, ranging from $60 to about $3,200,
Right.
depending on the size. So it seems a reasonable taking in order to get Summer Street moving.
I would agree, and I just have a question. Is the advertisement date still August?
It's still August 8th.
August 8th,
I think
okay.
Mass DOT is waiting for everything to get submitted, and they may move it to July.
Okay, great.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Can you witness it from there, Adam, and then? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Trish, one more question. We had the license, we had done the license paperwork from the MBTA.
Yes.
Is that what we're doing with the MBTA? We're
The
still...
license right now is, yes, you're going to have a license with the MBTA for the work on their property.
Okay,
They do, one of the things that was discussed as part of the language for the license was that the town reserved the right to fold that into an easement in the future, and the T agreed with that.
okay,
It went from the MBTA lawyers, the law office, to Keolis, who's the operator of the line, back to the law office. So I'm still waiting for that license agreement to come back to me.
okay.
So
So the
it's
license
imminent.
agreement allows us to proceed with the work.
Yep.
Are we going to need a further easement?
They think that you're going to need an easement at that location.
Okay, and do we have a cost for that easement at this point?
The total cost for a permanent easement would be $25,000, but they don't want it up front. So the
Wow.
cost of the license is $1,000 a year. So you can pay for the cost of the license until you pay for the $25,000 for the easement. So in
Okay.
25 years, you'll have the easement paid off.
Okay.
They don't want interest or anything like that.
Okay, thank you.
Is that? Okay.
This is-
Our hearing on the Unifor event at Holman Street is scheduled for 7:20, so I'm going to take a few other items until we get to 7:20. I'll direct you to the appointment to the Personnel Committee for Eric Arnold, which is in your package. There's a town bank for Eric and a memo from Timothy Murphy, who's the town moderator, who's involved in appointments to the Personnel Committee. Eric, would you like to come up and say hello? Yep. We're moving you up on the agenda.
Okay.
Eric has agreed to join the Personnel Committee and you have his talent bank in front of him, what we usually do is ask why you're interested in volunteering for the town, although we love to see it.
Yeah, I don't have enough to do, so I was come out to some more meetings. No, just trying to, I heard there was a need, and I have some experience working with, I guess, negotiating contracts for, I'm in education, so I'm currently a high school principal, but I've been a teacher on the kind of teacher side of labor negotiations, and hopefully some of my background can help with the Personnel Committee.
Any questions or comments?
Just a comment that I know Eric personally, and I've worked with him on several different issues, and I think that he will be a valuable asset to the Personnel Committee, and I want to thank you for coming forward.
Yes, thank you very much.
And I would make a motion to appoint Eric Arnold to the Personnel Committee.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations. Need to see the
Thank
town
you.
clerk and get sworn in. And
First meeting's tomorrow.
first meeting tomorrow, we'll put you right to work.
Get sworn in before the meeting.
Thank you, Eric, appreciate it. Now we do the reuse committee.
Okay.
Another item on the agenda that should only take a few minutes is the thank you letters to the Building Reuse Committee. We've reviewed these before, and we've prepared letters. The Building Reuse Committee worked for almost 4 years on an assignment the Board of Selectmen gave them, and at the last town meeting, they declared that they had finished that phase of their work, and we've prepared a letter to them. The members of that committee are Damon McQuaid, representing the Planning Board, Mike Mackin representing the School Board, Mark Erickson representing the Finance Committee, Becky Lantry representing the Historical Commission, and Dave McDonald and Ron Albert, who were citizens at large. I'd also like to thank John Londa, Adam Burney, and the town manager, Heather Lemieux, for all the support they gave that committee while they did their work. And if I might, I'd like to read the letter that we prepared. The Board of Selectmen, on behalf of the town of Lunenburg, would like to thank you for serving on the Building Reuse Committee. This committee researched the existing condition of town-owned property and explored possibilities for consolidating the town's municipal operations at a single location, compared costs and benefits, and made recommendations that will become part of the town's operating plan in fiscal year 18. In addition, your committee was instrumental in driving the creation of the zoning bylaws for the village district and the safeguards created on the Architectural Protection District. Thank you for the many hours you've put into this important project and your dedication to the charge the selectmen gave you. You delivered on your assignment and should be proud of your achievements, and it's signed by each of us. Can I get a motion to sign these?
Motion to sign the letters as read by the chairman for the stormwater, for the Building Reuse Committee.
Is there a second? Thank you. Any discussion?
I'd just like to say thank you to you, Jamie, for chairing that committee for all 4 of those years. You did an excellent job.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Close enough?
I think so. We could quickly do
Okay.
the finance director, if you want.
Oops, sorry. I always do that, don't I? No.
No.
Hold it. Okay. I'm about to move on to our agenda item for the public hearing to discuss the Unifier event at 300 Holman Street and the discussion of a weekday entertainment and a Sunday entertainment license for the June 22 through June 25 timeframe. I'd like to remind those that wish to speak that the Board of Selectmen are here to review the entertainment licenses, both the weekday entertainment license and the Sunday entertainment license, and that we do not have authority over zoning or several of the other side issues on this issue. We will hear anybody that wants to speak. We'd ask you not to be too repetitive. If somebody's already said what you had in mind, you may just want to say you agree with that speaker, and we'll give it as much time as we think we need to understand everybody's point of view. Because I cut off the gentleman, I'd invite him to be first.
Say so, thank you.
Please remind us who you are.
Yes, I'm terribly sorry about earlier, just a little nervous speaking in a crowd like this. I am Morgan Ledger. I work for the Lunenburg Ledger. I've been covering these two assignments, one on the Unifier Festival and the other on the Lane Estate property. Very, very interesting topics per se. And in regards to the Lane Estate, it was acquired by Dr. Darian Massey. It's about 140 acres of land. It has a lot of gracious space for plenty of things. And according to him and a colleague of his, they were doing some experimenting and seeing what could work because they want to open it to the community as sort of in the basis of like a public park per se, hold it for social events. They did it with a wedding once, which did very, very well. And with this upcoming event, the Unifier Festival, it really does open a lot of possibilities of what could be used with the property in general, whether it be something as small in terms of like a live concert event or just something for the community in general. And I find it very interesting to see something that brings communities together just to sort of, be enlightened or try something different, whether it be artistic expression or just seeing a different subculture. In those regards, I'm curious to see where this could partake to. I've talked to both Dr. Massey and the founder, producer, and owner of Unifier Festival, Jason Cohen. He's previously worked with these kinds of festivals before. They are family-friendly. I believe that's all I have much to say in regards to the upcoming event and the Lane Estate property. But if you are curious to see the Lane Estate property and Dr. Massey himself, he opens an invitation to view the area. In terms of directions, just go by Route 13 North Townsend, just keep going on Chase Road, and there'll be a little bit of a turn right after a Subaru dealership. Given those directions per se, because when I tried going with my GPS once, it took me down a certain road, and it led to a bridge that was closed off, so I thought I'd address that in case anyone's curious to see what this looks like. But I assure you it's very beautiful. There's some very unique sculptures. A lot of artists have been there prior to Dr. Massey taking up this property of land, and that's all I have to say on my behalf, so I have to thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
My name is Thomas Lesser. I'm an attorney with Lesser, Newman, Alio, and Nasser in Northampton, and I'm here tonight representing the Unifier Festival. And as you know, you previously issued an entertainment license, which was for Thursday, June 22nd to Sunday, June 25th. That was done after a consultation with the police department, with the fire department, with the Board of Health, and with the building department. The Unifier Festival has been vigilant about working with all the departments within Lunenburg and finding out what their concerns are. And as a result of that, those various departments raised certain concerns, and they were included in the first permit that you issued. For example, the fire department wanted to make sure there were fire extinguishers for the food vendors, an evacuation shelter plan was in effect, a fire lane, monitoring of the fire, what single fire that was going to be there. The police department wanted a parking and access plan. And since then, they've been in contact with the police chief, and there's going to be a police detail there on Friday for sure. And it's possible that a police detail will be there Saturday night just to make sure that if there's any issues at all, that a police department doesn't have to be called out because police department time is limited. And there would be somebody on site to make sure that if there were any issues as to noise or anything else, those were taken care of. The building department had issues about the stage, wiring permits, plumbing permits, and the Board of Health had issues about camping, and I sent a lengthy email to the chair, Mr. Eamond, about all the vendors, and he has asked for written contracts. I just met with him as I walked in, and he says, you know, he wants written contracts, which we'll get him in the next day or two with all the vendors, and I laid out who's going to be doing the sanitation, who's going to be taking care of the refuge, who's going to be bringing in the water that's DEP certified, and all those issues which were laid out. And I think that you imposed those conditions on the festival, and I think they were totally appropriate conditions. And we suggest that they be imposed again on the permit that we're asking that you issue now. For those who weren't here or at the earlier meetings, there were 2 earlier meetings, and I think granting the license was totally appropriate. For those who weren't here in the audience, the applicant has a track record of 4 years of festivals, which are much larger than the festival that's going to happen here in Lunenburg, and there have been no arrests, no Board of Health complaints, no incidents of any kind. And for the last 2 years, it's happened in Tolland, and I understand the Chief of Police has had conversations with the Chief of Police. Your Chief of Police has had conversations with the Tolland Chief of Police. There have been conversations with the Tolland Board of Health just to confirm that that is in fact true, that there have been no incidents of any kind. So there's a track record here. That's number one. Number two, as was explained, this is a pretty unique festival. This is a family festival in which people 8 through 80 come. And what makes it pretty unique is that no drugs are allowed, and there is no alcohol allowed either. Those are 2 things that lead to incidents, that lead to disruptions, alcohol and drugs. And they just aren't allowed at this festival. So you've got a group of people who are multi-generational, they're coming together, they're doing workshops together, they're listening to music together, they're doing yoga together, and it's all ages. Third, as it was explained, it's professionally produced. The producer was here, Greg Jones, at the last 2 meetings. He's not here tonight, but he produces the Green River Festival in Greenfield at GCC. It has 15,000 people. This festival is going to be limited. It's a one-time festival. The Unifier people hope to buy land, or are planning to buy land. Hopefully they close in the next 2 weeks on land in Tolland, and they're limiting this to 500 tickets. You issued it under Section 181 of Chapter 140 of the General Laws, and that chapter, appropriately for entertainment, which is First Amendment protected, says you shall issue a license unless it would lead to the creation of a nuisance or would endanger the public health, safety, or welfare. And no application shall be denied if the anticipated harm is not significant or if the likelihood of its occurrence is remote. And I'd suggest that, given their track record of never having any incidents of any sort, that any suggestion there would be anything untoward would be remote. And you have made sure, with all the conditions that you've imposed to date, that there is no significant anticipated harm. And so I know there at a number of previous hearings, people from Lunenburg who had attended testified. I watched the videotapes. They talked about the fact that it was the most organized festival they'd ever been to in their lives. It was the cleanest festival they'd ever been to in their lives, and they supported it. And I think we're here really tonight for something of a technical reason, in the sense that there should have been applications the first time around for weekday and Sunday. And unanticipated, I mean, nobody caught that. There aren't that many entertainment licenses that are issued. I happen to be involved in a lot of them, but most people don't understand that world. And so there should have been two, and there wasn't, you know. But we welcome the opportunity to come back and explain again, you know, what we are, what the festival is, and why it will not be a problem of any sort. It will be an asset and a nice gathering of people over the weekend. So we'd ask that you revise the weekday license back to Saturday, and that you issue the Sunday license. And we're happy to answer any questions you might have, or anyone else might have, if you direct us to answer them.
Thank you. Anybody else? Sir.
Hi, I'm Jeffrey Mendoza, 162 Lancaster Avenue, and I'm also currently serving as Agricultural Commission Chairman for the town of Lunenburg. And I said this a couple of years ago in another matter. I feel very strongly that Lunenburg is appealing in a lot of ways due to the open space that we still have. And it's my conviction that if those of us who own large pieces of land and want to keep them from being developed are not allowed to do what we want to do with these pieces of land, that incentive and the desire to maybe sell them for development becomes very strong. And in this case, Dr. Massey is looking not only to provide a site for this particular event, but he's looking to donate access and use of this property to the town. For future events, from what our conversations have been, he's very open to any sort of thing. He's approached school groups they've had sort of art days, things like that, at the property. And I would hope that the town of Lunenburg would look at this as the gift that I think Dr. Massey intends it to be, and would accept the gift graciously going into the future. As from the Agricultural Commission's standpoint, and unfortunately we haven't had a meeting yet since this has come about, but I do know that local farmers, producers have been approached by members of the Unifier organization to provide agricultural meat for the festival. And I think from an economic standpoint for the farmers that I represent, I would hate for an economic opportunity to be denied them. You know, they have it hard enough as it is. And Unifier obviously is bringing local vendors of all kinds to the festival as well. And my last point is I was asked to provide music for the open house that happened last Saturday. And as a musician, as an artist, the site is wonderful. It's really, playing there was a joy, and hopefully other musicians will have the opportunity, and other artists will have the opportunity to take advantage of, again, a privately held piece of property that's being offered to, in this case right now, to Unifier, in the future to all of us potentially, if we choose to accept the gift. So hopefully you'll re-grant the license. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is John Dombrowski. I sent a letter to you guys. I assume everyone's got it. I represent Christopher Burrill, Dana Burrill, Steve Whitman, Linda Whitman, and about, I want to say 12 or 13 other households, all who live on Holman Street. We don't doubt the good intentions and the veracity of the petitioners. Everybody loves a festival, unless you live there. Aside from that simple fact, they all live there. And this is not a graduation party with, 50 or 100 people for a big wedding or even a one-day event. This is a 4-day event with 500 people. And, if you read the social media, and I think I attached some of that to my correspondence, it's really a 5-day event because it's going to end at 10 o'clock at night on the 4th day, and then there's a breakfast the following morning. There's some practical, there's some legal matters that I'd like the board to consider. I know at the outset, the chairman indicated that, you don't have jurisdiction over zoning. That may be, but I don't believe the board can turn a blind eye to zoning. And quite frankly, zoning doesn't permit any of these uses in this zoning district. It doesn't permit vendors, food trucks, campground. None of those matters are permitted by your zoning bylaw. This street, I'm sure most of you are familiar with it, is about 14 feet wide at many locations. It's rendered a dead end because the bridge is unusable. And this is an event where campfires and bonfires are going to be happening. In fact, they're encouraged. And with 500 people sleeping out, camping out, it's going to be a prevalent activity. 500 people. I don't know how many cars that's going to be. But the access for emergency vehicles is going to be greatly impacted. We're talking loud music throughout the day. That's all great. Concerts are great, festivals are great, the intention is great. I'm glad I don't live there. This entertainment license is governed by Mass General Law, Chapter 140, Section 181 and 183A, and essentially requires this board to address pedestrian traffic, vehicular traffic, parking, disruptive conduct, probable disruptive conduct, increased noise level. All of that is going to happen. There's no question about that. There's not one person in this room who thinks that 500 people at the end of a very quiet, dead-end residential street for a 4 or 5 day festival isn't going to increase all of those levels. Just really in closing, we think the remedy for the owner of this property is to seek a special permit for use as a campground or something along those lines. And I think the bylaws do permit that. But this action, we respectfully suggest, is ill-advised at this location. And on behalf of my clients, we just, again, respectfully ask the board rescind this entertainment license. Thank you.
Please.
I would like to say that I worked...
Could you just tell us
Oh,
your name?
my name is Heather Bowen, and
you.
I'm from 188 Flat Hill Road.
Thank you.
And also, I'm from the Whalen Park family, if that matters, because that gives me some other perspective on this. I worked the first Unifier Festival like 4 years ago by now, and I'd worked several other festivals for 10-year period of time, many other larger festivals that have been going on for multiple years. And I was completely impressed with Jason Cohen's festival and how he organized it. And I was brought in by his production manager, Greg Jones, who was here on previous occasions, from the larger festivals. And I helped with the artist relations and runners, which means bringing people on and off the site, getting supplies on and off the site. So that means I had to deal with any traffic that was coming on and off the site to make sure artists were where they needed to be, supplies were where they needed to be. And my experience was people came to the festival in small groups over the days they were allowed to come while there was the build going on or when the festival first opened, in such a way that I didn't have to worry about the traffic down windy back roads where the festival was being held. And when I was coming and going through the festival, it wasn't an issue either. And the way people left the festival, it was some people left on Sunday morning when they got up, some people left in the afternoon, some people stayed later in the evening to help take things down, and people who were allowed stayed. So it was a very slow coming and going that didn't cause traffic congestions, because I know that's an issue here. And also I have to say that it is the quietest festival I have ever been to. And the kind of things that went on in the evening, even with the number of people, weren't individual fires that you would see at campgrounds. It was people gathering around the sacred gathering space that had been permitted for the point, and being very reflective and meditational and coming into a union. That's not the kind of festival that I hear people worrying about happening here. Sure, there's music, some of it is electric, some of it is acoustic, but everybody really came together, and the respect for the land and the community around them was both surprising and enlightening to me after all of the other festivals that I've worked. And I know that the crew is very professional and knows what they're doing. And I've been out at the site helping to look at what the parking's going to be, looking at what the driving's going to be, looking what the camping's going to be, trying to make sure that it's going to have the least impact on the land and the least impact on the community, in a way that people can gather and come together for meditation, spiritual understanding, and listening to the kind of world music that gets invited to this, that I think that it would be an amazing thing to have in Lunenburg. And I do think that the people on the street should come and enjoy it rather than try to push something so great away from our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir.
Members of the board, my name is Chris Barilli. I live at 484 Holman Street, which is next door to 300 Holman Street. Our property is located roughly 600 feet from the concert stage and speaker system that is proposed at this event. As you can imagine, I was very upset to learn that the entertainment license had been granted to 300 Holman Street. So tonight, I would like to share 5 facts with you that may change your opinion about this license. Fact number 1, which is page 2 in your packet. Neighbors have heard from town officials and supporters of this event that this license is just for a one-time event. I disagree, because this Unifier event is just part of a much larger calendar of events at 300 Holman. In the summer of 2016, a wedding was held at 300 Holman, and a half hour before the event, and at the end of the event, approximately 80 cars rushed by my home, which is only 21 feet from the road. More recently, the owners of 300 Holman Street have held 5 events as shown on the Tenderness Gathering website, which is a screenshot on your packet there. Finally, neighbors have had reason to believe that there will be one additional wedding held later this summer. So let's be clear, this is not just a one-time event. This is an event venue that is being operated at 300 Holman Street. Fact number 2, this event may have environmental impact on private wells, Mulpus Brook, and Hickory Hills Lake. I apologize in advance, this is a little gross, but the average person urinates between 800 and 2,000 milliliters per day, or about a quarter to a half gallon per day. So over a 4-day event, that will be between 1 to 2 gallons per person, or 500 to 1,000 gallons of urine in total. Now, Unifier has indicated in previous hearings that they will have 10 porta potties on site. On average, each porta potty holds 50 to 60 gallons of waste. So let's assume that 15 gallons is for chemicals and what's called other waste. That leaves 40 gallons times 10 porta potties, or 400 gallons of capacity for 500 to 1,000 gallons of volume. A reasonable person might conclude that the excess 600 gallons of urine will end up in the woods, possibly entering our private well water, the Mulpus Brook, and eventually Hickory Hills Lake. And I will remind the board that camping will be along the banks of the Mulpus Brook. Fact number 3, security has not adequately been addressed. Tonight actually is the first time I've heard that there could be a police detail Saturday. It's reported that 22% of Americans have been arrested at least once. So if you place 500 random people at an event, statistically speaking, 109 will have had a previous arrest. And yet, we have heard very little about security at this proposed event, where 500 people will not just be attending, but will be camping overnight near our homes for 4 days. This is completely unreasonable. Fact 4, Holman Street will not accommodate 250 to 300 cars, vendor trucks, equipment delivery, tractor trailers, and RVs. It's my understanding that when this event was previously held in Tolland, no cars could park at the event. Bus transportation was provided for guests from an off-site parking location to the event venue. Why was this option never raised to you? Also, you've read several letters. Holman Street's only 14 feet wide, and in many locations, and tractor trailers must back down the road to deliver tents and stage equipment and pray that no cars are coming. It's unreasonable to think that Holman Street is adequate to accommodate the amount and type of traffic expected at this event. And finally, fact 5, noise pollution has not been adequately addressed. Unifier has failed to provide accurate decibel level data to the board. Their answer to noise levels is that if there's a complaint, we'll turn down the music or we'll change the speakers to a different direction. I have done my research, and my property, which is only 650 feet away, will have decibel levels approaching 79, which is the equivalent of a garbage disposal. Except in this case, those 79 decibels will be for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, for however many hours that Unifier wants to play music. Again, this is completely unreasonable. In closing, I want to thank you for hearing my concerns. It is my sincere hope that the board revoke this entertainment license. If the board determines that this event is in the best interest of the Lunenburg taxpayers, then I would ask that you consider adding 3 additional conditions to the license. First addition, to address traffic concerns, I would ask that no on-site event parking be allowed at the event, and that the same off-site parking procedure employed in Tolland be employed at this event. 2, to address security, noise, and environmental issues, I ask that this event only be conducted on Friday and Saturday between normal business hours of 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., with no overnight camping and no activities on Sunday. Neighbors should be able to have some peace and quiet in the evenings and on Sunday. And 3, if for some reason camping is still allowed, I'd ask that a licensed environmental testing company conduct daily testing of Mulpus Brook a week before the event to create a baseline, and during the event to monitor toxin levels. In addition, I request that the board require Unifier to place $100,000 in escrow for potential environmental remediation. This amount should be much more, but by my calculations, this approximates gross ticket sales and vendor fees for this event. Thank you.
Good evening. Matthew Allison, 188 Flat Hill Road. In response to a couple previous speakers, 13, they guessed, was not a supermajority for the 40 parcels that exist on Holman Street. They don't in fact live there because it is on private property. I was there on the property on Friday night. There happened to be a graduation party going on along the 14-foot wide street. I had barely enough room to get my pickup truck past the vehicles, in excess of 10 vehicles parked along the side of the street. It's not a dead end. In fact, the Lunenburg DPW Storm Pavement Management Plan dated March 2016 classifies Holman Street as a secondary main or secondary road, equivalent to the traffic volumes on Lakeview and Flat Hill before the bridge was closed in 2010. And it remains closed at the request of the landowners on Holman Street, my understanding. Loud through the day, yes, it may be loud, but there are noise, the standard is, I believe, 11 o'clock. So it may be loud during the day, but there is no noise regulation to avoid that. Special permit, yes, it has already been sought, and it probably will be sought again in the future, but again, this is a single event that is asking for a license for that single event. And I guess I would also ask, is camping allowed on conservation property? Does anybody know?
Some Conservation Commission property.
Okay, so the entire other side of Mulvis Brook is conservation property, which could potentially be camped upon and which also could potentially be within 300 feet of the previous speaker's residence. Thank you.
Sir.
Good evening. I'm Vince Winnock. I'm one of the residents of Holman Street, and my argument is more on a personal level. My cat, I've seen him in the middle of the road. I've seen my neighbor's dogs in the middle of the road. I've seen my neighbor's kids running up and down the road. It's a very small, dead-end road, and this festival has no place at the extreme end of this dead-end road. It is just, whether you want to argue about whether it's a good venue or not, that's moot, because the road just cannot handle it, and the expectations of everyone on that road is that it is a quiet, dead-end road. That's why we like it, and we all enjoy living on this dead-end road. I'm one of the ones who says, hey, don't fix the bridge. Why? Because our traffic problems have gone away. We want to keep it that way, and again, because it is a dead-end road, you see things you wouldn't see on a normal open road. And the expectations are that people don't worry about their kids getting hit by cars. The neighbors are out there, you don't have to worry about them. If we start having these events there, and I do believe that this is only the first of many events that are being planned for that property, it's going to change the whole dynamics of the neighborhood, and I beseech you, please do not let that happen. Thank you.
My name is Thea St. Martin. I live at 488 Holman Street, so 2 houses down from where this event is going to occur. I don't think that most of us have any doubt that the Unifier is a very organized and professional group. But as some of the previous people have said, this road is so small and private. Let me just say, I have lived on that road for 15 years. I have never even seen some of my neighbors. Tonight is the first time that I have seen the Barills, that gentleman who just spoke. I've never seen them before, okay? And that is how private and quiet of an existence that we live on that street. And that's what we like. I mean, if we need our neighbors, they're there for us, we're there for them. But if you guys have not driven down that street recently, I really encourage you to go down it and then tell us with a straight face that you think that that road can handle that amount of traffic, even if it's broken up over 5 days. Okay? I mean, it's just absolutely absurd. And I'm so upset. I can't believe that you guys even entertained this for a second. You know, my husband and I, we have long commutes to work. We have a small daughter. We have a very early schedule. This event encompasses 2 work and school days. It's going to disrupt their lives in a way that is unacceptable as taxpayers of this town. You are giving preference to a group from out of town who's going to take that money that they earned, they told you this, and spend it somewhere else. What interest do you have is for us? What is the interest for us? I really beg you guys to please reconsider this license. This is just, it's absurd. And again, please drive down Holman Street, please. And tell me that you think that that road can handle the traffic. Because it can't. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Eric Short. I live at 502 Holman Street. I spoke at the last Board of Selectmen meeting and appreciate all of you allowing me time to express my concerns and the clear objection with the entertainment license that was issued to 300 Holman. I'm still dismayed that we were not notified in writing that this entertainment license was being considered, and have major concerns moving forward with regards to future permits and events at this property. Holman Street is a quiet, dead-end, and residential road that, to my knowledge, is zoned properly to protect property owners by not allowing events such as this one to be proposed to occur. This is not a family wedding or graduation party that was mentioned earlier. If it was, I would not be standing in front of you right now. This is a for-profit event lasting 5+ 24-hour days, hosted by a professional promoter and a commercial enterprise. I am confident that this event is the first of many planned by Mr. Massey on his property. His clear intentions for the property moving forward are above and beyond what the land and neighborhood is zoned to allow. I had an open conversation with Mr. Massey this past Sunday, and although he appears to understand the concerns of me and the strong majority of neighbors on the street, he admittingly needs to pursue such events to help financially support the property. I strongly believe that this event is just the start of working to change this property and our neighborhood to allow commercial events to occur. This is not fair to all the tax-paying homeowners on Holman Street and should not be allowed for this event or any other for-profit events planned in the future. What is the purpose of zoning laws and residential restrictions if you can grant these permits without proper notification and now clear objections from everyone directly impacted by this on the street? Any support from this event I have seen today, including tonight, is from people who stand to financially benefit from it or people who simply do not live on Holman Street. My easy answer to all of them is you should look into hosting it in your neighborhood and look into the fine details of what's actually going to occur. In regards to this one-time permit, some of the major concerns and questions I have, the permit was granted for 4 days, or is being discussed tonight about being granted for 4 days. But as it was mentioned, it's clearly more than 4 days. The vendors are reporting on Wednesday. The last act is playing on 10 p.m. on Sunday, and breakfast is being served on Monday. So by any account, Wednesday to Monday is not 4 days. How is this going to be enforced? Who is enforcing this, if anyone? When issuing the original permit, was there a discussion of travel trailers and mobile homes? Because there is going to be travel trailers and mobile homes coming down this narrow street, and they're even selling they're charging extra for parking for the mobile homes. Who is monitoring the number of cars and people attending? You know, the permit, I believe, is for 500 people and 250 cars. Is anybody checking on that? Or is that just up to the unifier to control that? Is the town, do we oversee that? Is there a check on that? Have we looked into that? What is the requirement in terms of a police detail? I would expect with an event this long, there would be a police detail for the entire concert. It was mentioned earlier tonight that there might be one Saturday night. I would think because it's running around the clock, there would need to be a police detail in a private neighborhood around the clock for the entire event. Who's monitoring the campfires? And it was mentioned earlier, is the town getting any compensation for this money-making venture? I don't expect all of those things to be answered tonight, but those are all just concerns among a lot of the other things that came up tonight. I think the event is everybody that's come up here to talk about the event, I don't disagree with any of that. It's probably an awesome event, family-orientated, the whole 9 yards. It's just Holman Street is probably the most, other than the actual property itself, is the most ridiculous location in the world to hold it. And like some of my neighbors have said, if you have not driven down Holman Street lately, you need to, because it is not a street that is ready to hold a 500-person festival for 4 days. It is just completely insane. So I encourage you to reconsider the permit, and I hope that in the future, my nice residential neighborhood doesn't turn into a commercial use. I appreciate your time, and thank you.
Hello, my name's Mary Thurston. I'm at 487 Holman Street. I just want to second what Mr. Short said, as well as some of the other Holman Street residents there. We pay a lot of money in taxes in this town, and it's a beautiful residential street. And I ask all of you who live in Lunenburg, would you have been so quick to grant that permit if it were on your street? I have 3 children, okay? They ride their bikes up and down the street. Safety is an issue. When the garbage truck comes on Wednesday or whenever, you cannot drive by. Somebody has to pull over. So when there's two-way traffic, it's not going to be a smooth exodus and entrance for these people. If I'm going, from my home, and these people are coming in, I'm going to have to pull over. I don't know if you guys really realize that. Drive down the street. Come knock on my door, and I'll drive the other way, and you will see one of us most likely will have to pull over. Is that true, residents of Holman? Absolutely. So if there is an emergency, if there is a fire, if there is a mass shooter, if there is something, and it is not technically a dead-end street, but if you have been down there, there's a giant concrete barrier. So in essence, it is a dead-end street. You cannot go through unless you're on a bicycle, foot, or motorcycle. So safety is my main issue. And if there is police detail, who's paying for that? Taxpayers? And that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hi, Jessica Frank. I live at 278 Holman Street. I live on the other side of the bridge. However, I have concerns, both personal and not personal. The event's not being held in a location that has the infrastructure for that kind of parking. It's been raining for a month. Do you think those parking lots are going to be able to handle cars? It's not going to dry out in 2 weeks. There's going to be cars stuck, tow trucks, on top of the fact that it's not there. The town is ill-equipped to deal with an event of this nature, both for management and emergency response. We have a tiny town. How many police officers are on duty on any given day? 5? What happens if there is an emergency there? We don't have the police to even deal with 500 additional people. What if something happens to my child and the police are there dealing with a noise violation and my child needs something? I have 4 young children that, like everybody said, they bike. I have a dog who is not on a leash, who roams. He stays in our area, but every time someone comes by, he's going to bark at them, I guarantee you. And my kids go out on their bikes. My kids are used to it. Who's going to pay for all of this stuff? If there is a police detail, who's going to pay for it? Me, as a taxpayer? My taxes are exorbitant already. Most of Holman Street is not the lower end of the Lunenburg tax bracket either. If you look at the houses, we are on the higher end of the tax bracket, so we are paying a ton of money. And has Unifier or Mr. Massey put any sort of money in escrow for any sort of problems that arise? The taxpayers are going to be left with the burden if something does happen. If there is an emergency, it's the taxpayers who are going to pay for it if there's no money in there. And what is the financial benefit for the town anyway? Are we making any money from this? Are my taxes going to go down because of all these events? And I understand the Unifier people. It does sound like a lovely event, but I have 4 children. We're loud with 6 of us. I can't imagine 500 people. You can't promise me you're going to be quiet. Anybody who's had a party more than 30 people, it's loud. People get loud. Also, drug and substance free, who's policing that? You know, I've been to many things that have said no alcohol, and who hasn't brought a Solo cup? I mean, who's policing this drug and alcohol free thing? It's nice to say it, and I appreciate it, but who's policing it? It's not, I can say anything. You can say everything's drug and alcohol free. I'm also concerned, what if there is an emergency? How are these people going to get out? Are they going to trample through all of our properties to get out? Are people going to be breaking into our houses? We live in an area where it's very safe, it's very quiet. I don't worry about that, but who's guaranteeing these 500 people are going to be law-abiding citizens that are not going to walk through my property, who are not going to see a bike out and take it, or any of this stuff? There's no guarantees. Noise, again, a lot of us have young children. 11 p.m., that's past my bedtime, not much less my 7-year-old's bedtime. I mean, they can't sleep, and it's the summer, so we should close all our windows and to not listen to the noise. And if they move a speaker, they're going to move it from your house to my house, or vice versa. I mean, there's houses everywhere, so you can't move a speaker to make it so it's not going to affect somewhere. And again, who's going to pay for any sort of things that happen? And it was said that the neighborhood had notification of this, and we never were told about this. I would have come to the first meeting. My husband and I both would have been at the first meeting had we known this was an even option. And I'm just afraid that this is going to be a bigger problem, and that this is just opening the floodgates for something else. No one's saying this Unifier thing is not what it's been billed, but it's a neighborhood, and it is a dead-end street, and I have a large car, and I have to pull over for every car that comes by. A mail truck, a tiny truck, it just doesn't fit it barely fits 2 cars. I beg you to not let this happen, because it's just going to open it up for the next time and the next time. Please consider it. It's not good for our neighborhood or our town.
Good evening. I sent you guys a letter, but I feel like I'd like to read to the public. Is that okay?
Can you please tell us who you are?
Sure. My name is Anna Lockwood. I live on 91 Main Street.
Thank you.
All right. So I'm just going to read off this letter that I think you all received. Dear Board Selectmen, I'm writing to express my support for Jason Cohen and his proposed to hold a Unifier event at the property located at 300 Holman Street. The expert below on the event website captures the nature of the event. Unifier Festival will bring together an amazing group of people, of inspirational artists and educators. This is a sacred celebration of all there are, that we are, and all that we can be. My understanding of the situation is that a permit was issued and then revoked by the Board of Selectmen due to a process technicality. This leads me to believe that this type of event is permissible under Lunenburg laws. However, at this time, neighbors have also expressed concerns and objections about the logistical viability of holding such an event in their streets. The residents of Holman Street have been very fortunate. Instead of having the whole property lane going to the market, due to the exceptional benevolence, charity, environmental conscientious, and civical-mindedness of the Lane family, a large portion of the property became conservation land. A substantial amount of state and local taxpayer went into achieving this. The other large part of the land estate was purchased by Darren Massey with the hopes of using the property for civic and cultural purposes while maintaining the property's peaceful and natural settings. Instead of being surrounded by several new subdivisions spread over hundreds of acres of land, Holman Street residents live next to a beautiful expanse of preserved land. Instead of several new homes being built and a permanent new population of at least 200 people, likely 500 people, driving with hundreds of cars going in and out every day, their neighborhood has retained a great deal of tranquility and natural beauty that is available to them year-round. It is worth noting that Holman Street is not a private way. We all used to use Holman Street. Due to Holman Street's residents' request, the Holman Street Bridge has not been repaired or maintained. The failure to maintain this historical bridge adds time to all Lunenburg's taxpayers traveling north. We are also risking the loss of a piece of a historic heritage. That bridge is a historic bridge, is the oldest bridge that we have in town, and personally, I would like to see that fixed for the purpose of being, for the reason that it's a historic. Once that's gone, we can't have it back. So in my opinion, the town's residents have been accommodating Holman Street's residents even when it was inconvenient and not necessarily in the best interest of all town residents. I'm sure the Lane family was quite conscious of Darren's plans for the property when they chose to sell and entrust to him their family homestead of many generations. Darren has invested himself heavily in turning his home and property into a hub of spirituality, education, and community that is in harmony with the natural beauty that it surrounds. The specifics of this celebration, called Unifier Festival, may not be entirely to the personal taste or chosen form of religion expression or artistic or educational preference of all residents of Holman Street. Nonetheless, the Unifier is a very positive event that Darren is bringing to our town, and our embrace of it is a testament of our spirit and the value that we give to freedom of expression, freedom of free association. That's what it is. Every corner of town has its imperfection. I live on Main Street. There's 4 stop signs in front of my house that I requested there because it is better for the community. It's not about me. It's not about the trucks using their engine brakes and waking me up at 5 in the morning. It's about safety, and that's what it matters. Some residential neighborhoods abut churches and schools and hundreds of people coming and going with great deal of traffic. I hope Holman Street residents can recognize the positive things that Unifier Festival means to others and the community as a whole, appreciate the blessings they have received in recent years, and share the neighborhood in the spirit of goodwill similar to the which they inspired the Lane family, from which they have greatly benefited. In my opinion, if the event is allowable under the law, it should be allowed. Holman Street residents' specific reasonable concerns should be addressed. So yes, we should be concerned about traffic, security detail, and so forth. And they should be addressed. At the end of the day, the neighborhood can sleep well knowing that the event is being conducted with the guidelines and under the supervision of Lunenburg Public Health and Safety Departments and town boards. I will sleep better knowing that Lunenburg is maintaining a reputation of strongly supporting and protecting its residents' freedom of spiritual and cultural expression and the right to enjoy their own property under the town's bylaw, even when it causes a bit of inconvenience. This is 4 days out of the year, 1% of the year. There's a lot of talk about, Mr. Massey holding other events, and I think that's a separate issue, but this is an event for 4 days, and that's what it is. We have many other events that there's been a question who's gonna be monitoring this and that, and that's concerns that can be addressed, but you can't take the right of a property owner away. This country was founded with the right to property, and that's in the Declaration of Independence. We can't simply take someone's right away because we're inconvenient, because we don't want it, because we want to live in a quiet road. Well, I want I moved out of the city because it felt too much for me. And if Main Street ever becomes too much for me, it is my job to move out, but not take the rights away from somebody else from using the street and so forth. And you know, and I find a little insidious, to say the least, that the residents have requested the bridge should not be repaired, and you know, we have limited funds, and I understand why the town said, well, if the residents don't want to, why should we invest the money in that? But now that's being used as justification for not allowing a property owner to exercise his rights. So it's not about the event, it's about, you know, what is under the law. We need to apply the law. The residents' concerns should be addressed, and, you know, and I ask the board to consider those facts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. I'll take one or two more.
Hello. My name is Dana Barilli, and I live next door to 300 Holman at 484 Holman Street. We've been living in our home for 2 years now, after a very long search for the perfect property. We had been in Stowe, Massachusetts on a fairly busy street, and we were looking for a quiet, peaceful, and simple life. We were so excited when we found our home and had such high hopes for a nice, quiet neighborhood on a dead-end street. There have been many events hosted at 300 Holman Street, some big like a wedding, and some small with approximately 15 cars. Although not what we were hoping for, we were okay with the events that occurred during the first 1.5 years we were there. Our concerns really started when the application to the Zoning Board of Appeals was submitted. The details of that proposal concerned us, especially the reference to parking 300 cars. We had thought after that proposal was withdrawn that the occurrence of such a large event would not happen. We have spoken with the property owners of 300 Holman a number of times, even spending 2 hours at their house during one of their open houses. During those conversations, we were hoping to find some common ground, but expressed our concerns in opposition to large events. So after all of this, you can imagine our surprise when we found out that a 4-day concert festival for 500 people and 250 cars was approved. I have no ill will towards the event itself or Unifier at all. They seem like lovely people, and from what I have read, are lovers of nature and the arts. In fact, I feel badly that this negativity from the neighborhood might affect their positive event. My concerns lie more with safety, noise, and traffic. I'm concerned about emergency vehicles being able to travel, you know, if there's a fire or some need for police. Recently, there was an event at 300 Holman where the cars were parked in such a way that they couldn't get through to the water source from the pond if they had to. Another major concern is for the animals. We have bears, deer, foxes, groundhogs, birds, more. I'm concerned about the speakers being directed into the woods. I mean, I know they'll be away from the neighbors, which is great, but they're going into the dense woods. According to the Journal of International Wildlife Law and Policy, background noise can interfere with wildlife communication. It can mask sounds of approaching predators and prey and cause increased stress for the animals. I'm also concerned for the campers. We've had bear activity in our yard, so I'm wondering if that could be a problem for them at night. And with the traffic, I just don't see how the cars would be able to park and travel the road safely. I'm concerned for the pets and children that live in the neighborhood. Is there another location in Lunenburg that would be better suited to such an event? Thank you.
Over here.
Hi, my name is Diane Aldrich. I lived at 500 Holman Street, and I think that my neighbors very nicely expressed all of the concerns. The one thing that I would just add to everything that they're saying is when you think about the width of this street, it's 14 feet in some. That's like here. That's like the three of you. And what's happening is, in the middle of the street, if you've never been at Holman Street, there is a bridge. And oftentimes, there are cars going down the wrong way on Holman Street, okay, if they're trying to get on the other side of the bridge, which means that they have to turn around. So there's a lot of traffic not only going towards it, but on the other side of the bridge, now they're going to have to turn around in what is essentially this space in RV. And all of these neighbors that are impacted are going to see all of that traffic. I mean, I'm absolutely furious that all of you would even consider having this kind of an event on that street. And to echo my neighbors, if you haven't been on Holman Street, you should go down there. It's a narrow, quiet street. I mean, it's absolutely ludicrous to think that anybody would hold an event on this street. I have no doubt that this yoga meditation thing is, you know, a wonderful event. But like one of my neighbors said, would you want it on your street? Would you want 300 or 250 cars on your street for 4 days? That's all I have to say.
Please.
Thank you. My name is Derek Matson. I live on 4 Windermere Drive. And I personally did not understand the logic and how the entertainment license was issued. Due to the recent hearings that discussed the long-term use of the land at 300 Holman, the board surely understood the abutters' concerns. We received letters in the mail telling us of the hearings. This time, it would appear that there was a decision not to notify abutters of the multiple hearings that did indeed take place regarding this license request. My second concern is that going beyond the Unifier event, we are all aware of the intent to change the use of the land in a more permanent way. This sets precedent for future events and is a method to justify future use and potentially permanent use. Holman Street is closed to local traffic only. Somehow, the board has granted a license that opens it up to the public, invites 250 cars and 500 people for an event that will last for vendors from Wednesday to Monday, a total of 6 days. This is not a safe practice. I've lived here for 15 years, and the majority of us have as well. We chose our place of residence based on the zoning and practices that are currently in place. These are our homes and our backyards. I have nothing against the event itself or the people holding the event. It is just simply not the correct location for it. I too wonder if the board would have issued the license if they were abutting landowners, or if perhaps it might have been a completely different outcome. Thank you.
I'll take 2 more. I see 2 hands. I'll take 2 more. Let's let the lady go first.
Hi, Carol Higgins, 41 Hilltop Lane, which is on Hickory Hills Lake. So I came because I'm embarrassed to say, as a townie, I did not know the existence of the history of the Lane Estate. And I've been listening to everything. I don't have the answers to the concerns of the Holman Street residents. I can certainly understand why they're there, but I really hope something can be worked out, because it's an incredible piece of property, and it's been used for the arts in the past. I would love to see it continue to be used for the arts. Again, I don't have the technical expertise to answer all the questions, but I do hope something can be worked out. And perhaps it is too many people. I'm not the one to judge, but I don't think we can just shut down the idea of it becoming a venue for the arts. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Steve Weaver from 288 Holman Street, and I'd like to echo what a couple of my residents have already said. But this street is not very adequately lighted, and after 7 o'clock at night, it's pitch black down there. And I've called the police several times on cars that go down to where the conservation land is and park down there and do all kinds of things. And there's all kinds of trash that's thrown out and everything. So I can just imagine what 500 people are going to be doing with this land. If an example of how they're going to leave the land better, just go down the street and see how all the trees are hacked up and how all of the erosion from all the water is washing out into the roadway. I happened to stop by up the other end. I live on the south side. I went by the north end today, and there's some barrels out in the road where water is coming down where all the trees were removed. I'm very concerned about the hazards that this creates. The pond, I don't know how they can police people not going and swimming in that. The bacterial levels, I mean, I grew up on Lake Shirley, and I see that the bacterial levels of that go up every year. Campbell's Beach used to be a beautiful beach. Shady Point is a mess. If this turns to a campground now, after this one-time event, it's a tragedy. There's a lot of other public places where this can be held. The Civic Center in Fitchburg, you know, it's commercial property. This is residential property. Why not hold it in an event like that? Like the Unifier lawyer stated, they hold it in stadiums. Hold it in stadiums, but don't hold it on residential property where it's going to affect us. And this is definitely not a one-time deal. And in the paper today, Jason Cohen commented, and I quote, he expects to receive a new permitting that will allow the 4-day Unifier Festival, like he's expecting it to be approved. So if we're just going through the motions and something has been already approved, then I don't think that's right. And I'm really concerned about the bacteria levels in that pond. I don't see how you can police people not swimming in it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we'll take two more. I know, it's tough.
Hi, it's Katie Adams from Williams Drive, and I don't really want to weigh in on whether or not the event should or shouldn't happen per se, because I really feel a little bit impartial in some ways. But I was here during the other two hearings, and I was here the night the license was granted, and it was just a celebratory thing for the group that was involved. I feel like they worked really hard, not knowing how Holman residents felt, but they put a lot of work into setting up the event. And there was just, I mean, I clapped because I wasn't involved in it, but I was so happy for them because they were so happy to receive their opportunity for their event. So that's why I sat back and listened, and I just wanted to bring us back to that night, having, I guess, the good fortune of being here for a different reason, and knowing that we've actually, as a town, already allowed the event to happen, and the work has been done for it to happen. Maybe letting it happen gives us a chance to see if it has all the negative outcomes. We'll learn from that. Without having it, we won't know if indeed all those things are true. And so I feel like the license maybe had that, hiccup of the Sunday, but it was issued, and I think it's great that all the concerns came out. And honestly, some of the concerns that were presented, I feel like I knew the answers to them because they did address them. And as they addressed them, a lot of things I was really worried about, just thinking like, oh wow, this seems like an unusual thing to take place. And then the questions were answered in my mind in terms of safety, and they have their own security team and their own first aid team. In addition to being super receptive to hiring police, they would indeed pay for that. It wouldn't be paid for by Lunenburg. So a lot of the questions were answered in those hearings. And so I just felt compelled to say that I know this license was already given. And I would feel really uncomfortable just from a town perspective, changing that midway. And so I think it would give us an opportunity, if the event took place, to understand what type of impact events like this would have, because we really don't have that data. It's sort of an unknown. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to close out the public comment. Ms. Bertram?
No, go ahead.
But I do notice that there are several town officials. I should remind you that when we had the first two meetings and we did discuss the entertainment license, we put some restrictions on that and asked the petitioner to go and speak with fire and police and Board of Health, etc. I noticed some of those officials are in the room. I'm not going to put them on the spot, but if any of them would like to speak, I'd like to give them this opportunity.
Can I just say
Sure,
something before
Ms.
that?
Bertram.
I want to start by saying that I'm very familiar with Holman Street as a member of the land acquisition team that worked many, many hours to preserve the Lane property, along with Brandon Kimby and other members of the land acquisition team. We worked very hard on getting that grant and moving forward with the Lane acquisition from the town's perspective, so I'm very familiar with Holman Street and the Lane property. I'm very sympathetic to the residents on Holman Street, and quite frankly, when the initial proposal came forward, I had many of the same concerns that you did, and you do. However, my question to the applicant was to go back to all of the town boards and make sure that all of their requirements could be satisfied. So that's why we continued the hearing. The hearing was continued. We received comments from Public Safety, from Board of Health, from Conservation, and all of the requirements of those boards have to be met. As was stated earlier by the attorney that spoke on behalf of the Univire event, the law doesn't allow us to not grant a license unless there is a strong and compelling reason not to do that, and one of those is public safety. However, it's my understanding, and it was a requirement of the approval, that they would need to satisfy police, fire, Board of Health, and Conservation and zoning requirements before they could move forward. So that was stated as part of the approval. There was a problem procedurally with the issuance of not issuing a Sunday license. However, I do feel that this board has approved the license. I do believe that we have answered those requests, and quite frankly, if the requirements of all of the town boards that are involved are not met, the event won't go forward, because they're going to need to obtain all of the necessary approvals to move forward. And at this point in time, I would not recommend that this board revoke the license.
Anybody else?
Well, I would just say that I was not a member of the board at the time it was approved originally, but I was in the audience for both hearings, and similar to what Ms. Adams said, I feel like as the questions were being raised tonight, I felt like I knew the answers to them, because I feel the board did quite a good job vetting those issues. And I would say that as I was sitting in the audience, I thought to myself, my God, why would anybody want to hold an entertainment event in town with they have to jump through all these hoops? I know it was the board being thorough, but it seemed almost to excess when I was sitting here at the time. And I would have a hard time revoking that, just based on the thoroughness. I understand the narrowness of the road, but again, it used to be a throughway, and it did hold that much traffic, and I have a hard time going back on a license that was already granted.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I have walked that property. I'm aware of the bridge. I fought for it at town meeting about 25 years ago to make sure we retained it. I will echo my fellow board members regarding the requirements of the law, that this is not really tremendously in our discretion to disapprove if the safety concerns have been addressed to the satisfaction of the town departments that were involved. I believe that we can handle the bureaucratic process of the weekday versus the Sunday process, but I would encourage the proponents of the application to hear the comments about future events, to make sure that future events don't turn into a commercial establishment. I share that concern. We don't want zoning creep, but at the same time, if it's allowed by state law, then it's allowed by state law. Thank you.
And I'd just like to clear up one item that I heard this evening, is that if, obviously our fine police officers and fire safety personnel are going to do their jobs, but if any additional police details are required, that's at the expense of the applicant and not at the expense of the taxpayers. Okay. Any other comments or questions? We have two items before us.
So I would move that we amend the approval of the weekday entertainment license to include the dates of June 22nd through the 24th.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 I would just add that all of the requirements of the prior approval stand.
Agreed. And they were part of our original vote. And then the other item is to add this, and you may want to note this.
So, in furthering the bureaucratic issue regarding Sunday license, I move that we approve Sunday license for Sunday, June 25th, and the requested hours are all day until 10 PM.
Second?
And I would note that all the same conditions continue on this license as well.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you very much for your input. You have to sign it on I think.
Where are we signing here?
Okay. Okay, on the top. Okay, when I get it back. I guess I'll give him a second to, no, I think just me. I do actually, yeah. Pretty civil at least.
Exactly. I can understand. Want to make sure that.
Oh, yeah.
Make sure Jason knows that. Okay. Good meeting you. Take
Call
care.
a recess for a minute? Give people time to get out of here, or?
Yeah, I'm going to call a 5-minute recess to allow those of you who want to stay for the rest of our meeting to be seated.
For the same issue, George?
Been proposal from the Stormwater Task Force.
Mrs. Luck is not back yet.
So we're not coming back
One
then.
second. I don't think we were recessed 5 minutes yet.
Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. I should look up. Okay, Mrs. Luck, we're on to the Stormwater Task Force
All right.
request. You're on.
All right. The Stormwater Task Force has a proposal for the sale and distribution of the rain barrels and compost bin. The background is that currently, rain barrels are $56 and the compost bins are $43, and they are sold at cost, what we pay for them. The 2017 annual town meeting established a revolving fund so that the money from the sales of the barrels and bins will now be placed in this fund. Formerly, the funds went into the town's general coffers. The grant through which these are purchased
Jim's out there.
So the grant through which these are purchased, currently $5,400 annually, allows for the funds to be saved and expended over time on a variety of named items and tasks. There's no cost to the town to purchase the rain barrels and compost bins. The state agency that gives the grant, suggests that towns give them away for free just to get them out into the community. It benefits the town to get more of them out into the community to mitigate stormwater runoff issues with the rain barrels and reduce the amount of waste through the compost bins that need to be hauled out of town. So in an attempt to get more rain barrels and bins into the community, the task force has suggested that if purchased together, the barrel bin pair could be sold for $80, which is like a $19, a 20% savings. And we'd like to have sort of a policy that Lunenburg town departments and boards may receive rain barrels and bins at no charge. There's a conservation commission request for one at this, right now.
For their own use as a board or?
Yeah, right. I
Okay.
think they have they have property on Hollis Road.
Okay.
And they want to be able to use it there. It seems appropriate to establish a policy approved by the BOS through which our goals can be accomplished. We'd like to, in an effort to promote the use of rain barrels and compost bins in the community, we'd like to establish the following policy: that the barrels and bins, when sold as a pair, will be sold at a reduced price. Using the current cost of $99 a pair, the reduced rate would be $80 for the pair, 20% savings. Rain barrels and compost bins may be awarded, when requested, to Lunenburg town departments and boards at no charge, and any other such reduced price giveaway offer would be at the discretion of the Stormwater Task Force as approved by the Board of Selectmen. Someone thought, you could raffle one off at the Stillman Fair or at Cruise Night, or, to get more awareness about these items and to get more out into the community.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, I actually have quite a few questions.
Okay.
So I applaud the effort to get them out into the community, and I support that. Obviously, stormwater is a huge concern, as well as compost bins, and I have a compost bin in my own rain barrel, so I understand the need to get them out in the community, but I'm not understanding the finances. So currently, we have a $5,400 grant. My first question is, how long is that grant? Is it a yearly grant? Is it a set amount of time? Is it?
We get it annually. We don't have to spend it all. We can keep it in a revolving fund and use it for bigger items later. One thing that you can use it for is the pay-as-you-throw system.
Okay, so
to help that. You can advertise the rain barrels with it. Let's say we wanted to put an insert in a tax bill,
Okay.
advertising the compost bins and rain barrels. There's a price attached to that, and we could use the grant money for that.
Okay, so we have an annual grant of $5,400. Is it a set period of time that we have this grant, or we have to apply for it annually?
We apply for it annually.
So there's no guarantee annually that we'll get that grant?
No.
Okay.
But, it's been consistently.
Right, but given the state of finances, nobody can predict that we're going to get that $5,400 annually. So my next question is, I thought you said currently rain barrels are $56 and compost bins are $43, and they're sold at cost, which is what we pay for them. So the town is paying for them through this $5,400 annual grant, if I'm understanding what you're saying. Is that correct?
Yes, the town pays for them with grant money.
Okay, so we buy them with grant money. Okay, so the $5,400 annually, we purchase X amount of rain barrels and X amount of compost bins. So, and then that money goes back into when people pay for them, that money goes back into the revolving account. So that money is going to continually grow or actually stay at $5,400 because whatever we pay, we get back. So the proposal is to do some of these at a discounted rate, which is basically going to cost us $19 from the grant funds.
Yes.
Okay. So the couple of concerns, I don't have a problem with a set amount to do that, but my concern is to put a limit on that. Because I think that we have this grant, and I think, having a revolving account makes sense, because then regardless of whether we get grant funding again, we have funds to go forward and continue this work. But I don't want to leave it open-ended that, for example, you said when requested to Lunenburg Town Departments at no charge, price giveaway offer. I would propose that we put a limit, a dollar amount, so that we don't go in a situation where we're giving away too many. That's the only caveat I would have to it.
Oh, that makes sense.
And my only comment is the last sentence isn't needed here if you're going to come back to be approved by the Board of Selectmen. You would just come back.
Yeah, mostly I just wanted to have it so that it's understood that you need Board of Selectmen approval for anything else. Much as I would like to give one to the chief for cruise night, I can't do that if I don't ask.
And so I would recommend that this be done with a limit of $1,000 on an annual basis.
Okay.
Just to throw out a number for discussion.
I guess I don't know, I have a little bit of a problem with this. If we're really trying to promote this, and if we sell one of each, we get $99 back, so it keeps $5,400. So what you're saying is every time you sell a pair, it eats $19 into your $5,400. I kind of think by putting a limit on it, you're adding bureaucracy that you don't need to add, but I'll go along with whatever the board.
It eats into the $5,400 for the year, though, because then, assuming the funding stays the same, the next year you'll get another $5,400. It's never going to deplete it down to zero or anything of that nature.
And even when you give it away, you're getting 80 back into it. It's costing you $19 to pair them, as opposed to zero to.
So the $1,000 that I was talking about was going to include what we gave away for no charge as well. So that you'd be losing $99.
Okay.
And I want to be clear, anytime you have a grant, just because you got it one year doesn't mean you're going to get it the following year. It's not a perpetual revenue stream. Some grants are, but we've all seen.
But I guess what I'm saying is if this money totally ate up the $5,400, if the giveaways totally ate up the $5,400, which I doubt it will.
Right.
Still, every time you sell one, you're going to get what it costs.
Right.
So you're not going in the hole until you give away.
Well, you are going in the hole if you keep selling them in pairs. You're going in the hole $20.
But you're getting two out there.
True.
Okay, go ahead. I just think it's in the level.
And just one more clarification, the $5,400 is not just for rain barrels and compost bins, or is it just for that? It's for.
It primarily is for rain barrels and compost bins, but you can use it for advertising for them and for associated costs. And I was looking through the grant today, and there are some pay-as-you-throw expenses that you can use it for.
Okay.
So if you had a large amount of money, you could divert it to similar issues. The grant is trying to get, reduce trash going up.
Well, I'm looking at this as, you could combine the advertising for stormwater into that $5,400.
Yes.
You could put stormwater literature out and have that paid for through the grant, and at the same time advertise the rain barrel. So I see it as an opportunity to utilize it just more for than just compost bins and rain barrels, but for an education tool, which is. It's a fairly expensive proposition. And
Yes.
so that's why I would want to limit the amount that we're giving away.
I would move that we approve the policy as submitted with a limit of $1,000 a year for the amount discounted or given away.
Second.
Any further discussion?
No, I think that's reasonable. It does add a layer of.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Item number 3, Finance Director contract. Town Manager. Bring us up to date on that one.
Yes.
So the board met on various occasions in executive session to discuss the finance director's contract and come to terms of agreement. This concluded at the May 23rd executive session, and the finance director has accepted the terms of the agreement. So the board will need to vote to accept the terms of the contract in open session and sign. 2 copies.
I move we approve the contract with the finance director as negotiated by the Board of Selectmen.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Do we have any minutes?
We do.
Okay. We have minutes for May.
May 2nd and May 16th.
Warrants? Okay, I have an accounts payable warrant in the amount of $1,766,514.03.
This is just the second
Okay,
package of
that's,
it.
and part 2 of the same one coming down. Just to make it heavier. That's it?
That's it.
Any action file issues? Okay. Okay, while you were signing, any action file issues? That's the second part. All righty. Committee reports. Mr. McQuaid.
Planning board has not met since our last meeting.
Mrs. Luck.
The school committee, at their last meeting, reorganized. Heather Soroka's the new chair. She'll remain on capital planning. John Londa, the facilities director, requested a line item transfer of $53,604. These are more surplus funds from the school's savings on natural gas and electricity. You'll recall there was an earlier transfer for surveillance equipment at the 2 schools. In this transfer, $10,000 will go to Turkey Hill Elementary for asbestos floor tile removal and replacement with carpet and vinyl tile. They're also replacing a main counter that they had in stock. $20,000 will be spent on patio furniture. 11 tables will be purchased, 3 will be placed outside on the media room patio, 8 will be placed down in the concession area. They are also purchasing 8 trash barrels. $22,558 will be spent on a John Deere tractor, which will provide redundancy, according to Mr. Londa, for snow blowing and grass cutting in the event the equipment they already have on hand breaks down. The Lifelong Learning Advisory Committee has worked with Fitchburg State Alpha program, which provides programming during the day used primarily by senior citizens. They'd be willing to partner with Lunenburg's efforts, but would need space for a couple of programs at no charge. The superintendent, has she already reached out to you?
She has.
Was going to reach out to the town manager to explore if the patios could be utilized at no charge. And Bill Iannacci brought a final detailed proposal for the A.J. Robbins Memorial Field House addition, which was approved by the school committee with their thanks. The structure will be completed with donations from local businessmen and tradesmen, as well as the results of fundraising. It's the hope that out of this tragedy and the loss of A.J. and other Lunenburg youth, something good will come. The ZBA granted Dan Proctor permission to put a car wash at his facility. The self-storage area at 270 Electric Ave can be open 24 hours for access. There was a veterinary clinic application for 324 Electric Ave. Ember Pizza came to them to expand that patio. And at 11 Beachview, They want to install 8-kilowatt ground-mounted solar system 3 feet from abutters' rear yards, and abutters within 300 feet were notified. Heather and I attended the MART Advisory Board meeting on May 30th. The matter that most affects Lunenburg is MART's decision to honor all invoices sent by Council on Aging's for FY 2017, but in FY 18, they're going to limit the cost to a third of the cost of transportation billed. Like some Council on Agings were charging them as much for administration as they were for the transportation, and they needed to get that in line to get some best practices. Have you determined whether that's going to adversely affect us or not?
That's something I still have to meet with the Council on Aging Director and the Finance Director.
Okay. So they weren't sure whether that was more or less than what we were already being compensated for.
All right, so that's something we should put on our agenda moving forward, or as an update if you find that it's not.
We will.
And they're going to hold a meeting of all of the communities that use the COA vans. You know, Leominster, Fitchburg, and Gardner have MART handle that. So they're the communities that aren't all the rest of the MART communities have their own COA transportation. And they're going to hold a meeting and try to get the contract figured out. That's it.
Okay. Ms. Bertram?
No updates. Conservation Commission meeting was canceled, and MPO doesn't meet until next week.
Mr. Peterson?
The Library Board of Trustees continue to develop their policy on the use of meeting rooms. And Sewer Commission is going to be having the state during this Route 2A repaving. They're going to be placing for the Sewer Commission about 40 manholes, manhole covers and devices there. The Sewer Commission is paying for them, but the state's putting in at no cost to us. They continue work on grease traps.
Yes, we do.
That's it.
And the Finance Committee met on the 25th. They delayed their organization discussion until their next meeting because they didn't have full attendance. They will next meet on the 22nd of June. Town Manager report.
I just wanted to add to Selectman Luck's report about the school request to use the patios. I have spoken with the superintendent about that, and it's been decided that the school will be able to accommodate them at the middle school, high school, as well as, because this benefits seniors, that other towns use their Council on Aging, their senior centers and libraries sometimes for locations. So she's going to approach the directors of both those buildings. And as well as the Memorial Field House, Bill Iannucci has been in contact with our office. It's on the agenda for the next meeting about waiving the building permit fee for that project, not including the electrical and plumbing, any of those permits, because those are paid for with the permit fee. Just an update on the town hall. The beginning of the removal of the records from the basement began last Thursday, June 1st, and was very productive. The dumpster was filled entirely, and approximately about 10% of the records taken out that day were kept in the trailer that the town has on site, and they'll be stored in the trailer until we have a company that can remediate those records. The same process will occur this Thursday, and with the goal of removing all the documents from the basement, hopefully by this Thursday, and the remaining items will be furniture that we can dispose of at any point. And the goal is to contact disaster recovery companies to come in as soon as possible to give estimates for the remediation work. I will update the board when we get those estimates. Complete Streets, we received notification on May 25th that our Complete Streets policy received a passing score, so we are now eligible for technical assistance funding. And Mass DOT indicated that the typical award is between $22,000 and $38,000. So we will be obtaining a scope of work proposal to submit to Mass DOT so we can access that technical assistance funding. The DLTA grant application that I submitted to MRPC to do an inventory of our property. I met with John Hume of MRPC and Charles Springer, who works for the environmental professional firm TRC that MRPC hired to work on brownfields properties to see how they can help with this grant application. We discussed the gas station in particular, because if there were two property owners removed, it would qualify for Phase 1 Brownfields Assessment funding, but unfortunately does not look like that's the case. But that doesn't mean that's the end of that story. On another note, MRPC will be able to assist the town with the creation of an inventory of all our brownfields in town, including mapping that out for us. So I think that's valuable information for the town to have. And just a couple announcements that we received an application, copy of an application that was submitted to Conservation Commission for a hearing that will be held on June 21st for the Verizon wireless tower at the middle school, high school. And so we have a copy on record, as well as Conservation should have a copy of that as well.
Why is Conservation Commission acting on that? I'm just curious.
Is that the Zoning Board of Appeals?
It's not a wetlands issue.
There's, it's a request for determination of applicability, so they have to have a negative or positive determination.
Okay, so it's work within 100 feet of the wetland. Okay.
There will be a ribbon cutting ceremony at the corner of Pearl Hill Road and Fisher Road in Fitchburg for the solar project built by Nexam in Fitchburg. So the town of Lunenburg received 50% of the value of those net metering credits on that project, and which are going towards the public safety building and the middle school, high school for our lighting accounts for those two buildings. And I just want to, we received a letter, two letters. One from Joanna Bellotta from the Lake Shirley Improvement Corporation. I just wanted to read. Dear Mrs. Lemieux, I'd like to share with you Lake Shirley Improvement Corporation appreciation of thanks to Police Chief Marino and Fire Chief Sullivan, who were present at the LSIC annual meeting every year. We are so grateful for the time and effort they take each year to share their thoughts and experiences of what both departments provide to Lake Shirley in ways of safety all year long with police patrols, ice safety, and dam clogs. We are so fortunate to have the two department heads that work so hard for the community. Anytime we call, they help. They are so committed, helpful, kind, and knowledgeable. We are so grateful to have officers like them patrolling our waterways, roads, and buildings. They're an example to others. Please thank them both again for their contribution. As always, it was outstanding, and Lunenburg is lucky to have them. Sincerely, Joanna Bellotta. And one other notation that was inadvertently overlooked. We received a letter from the fire chief in honor of National Emergency Medical Services Week, which was May 21st through May 27th, to recognize all the hard work of our emergency medical services personnel for the job that they do for our citizens. So I just want to make a note of that.
Okay. Just want to talk about our upcoming schedule. Our next meeting is June 13th, which is a regular meeting. The agenda seems to be getting crowded. June 20th, we'll have a workshop meeting, which of course is open to the public but not televised, and the main topic is traffic rules and regulations, and the police chief and town council will be part of that workshop. June 15th is the Cable Advisory Committee public hearing that the Board of Selectmen host, and I just want to ensure that we're going to have a quorum. We all When,
I am not going, I will be out of town.
You know, and I'm going to be at that stormwater meeting.
Damon, are you going to be there?
Yeah.
Okay, and I'll be there, so we're fine. So that's June 15th here in the Town Hall, and then July 4th is a holiday. Is there any public comment from the public? Any final public comment from the board? I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.